All right, welcome to Hannity. Tonight coming up, we'll talk about Dumpty's great fall. His time at fake news CNN officially over. We have the inside scoop tonight. Meanwhile, a teachers union in New Jersey is calling parents extremists in a brand new political ad. First, it's the Biden DOJ and, of course, domestic terrorist investigations. Now, teachers union is attacking parents. Also, tonight we'll show you some shocking new video of another unprovoked attack in New York City. And, well, Finland's 36-year-old socialist prime minister living a high life while millions of Europeans are suffering from war and millions more suffer from a bad economy and ruins. Is that a problem? We'll talk about it. But first, tonight, America is now facing a dire problem from within. The seat of political power in the U.S., the Washington swamp, is completely, totally hostile to all Republicans, all conservatives, and especially anybody that dares support Donald Trump. As we speak, our nation's capital is now the most liberal part of the country than anywhere else in America, and that would include places like California and New York City. In 2020, Biden carried the District of Columbia by over 92 percentage points. Look at that, over 92%. That never happens. All neighboring counties, meanwhile, voted for Biden by at least 80%. In other words, almost every single career bureaucrat, public servant, supposedly, in the swamp in D.C. is a Democrat or a Trump hater. And, of course, that includes almost every official at the DOJ and the upper echelon, not rank and file, the upper echelon of the FBI. So, naturally, the unprecedented raid on Mar-a-Lago was conducted not by the nearby Miami FBI field office, no, but by an FBI counterintelligence division from Washington, D.C. Now, get this. It is the very same division of the FBI that spent all those years perpetrating the Russia hoax in the bogus political investigation that they proudly named Crossfire Hurricane. Great job, Director Wray, for cleaning this up. Now, prior to obtaining a warrant to raid Mar-a-Lago, the DOJ went judge shopping, of course. They picked this guy, a low-level magistrate, not approved by the Senate. His name is Bruce Reinhardt. He made political donations to Barack Obama. He expressed hatred for Donald Trump on social media and even once recused himself from a suit involving Trump and Hillary because he hates Trump. Now, today, this very same judge was tasked with deciding whether or not that the affidavit, in other words, the DOJ's justification for raiding Mar-a-Lago in this case, will be released to the public. Now, the affidavit could reveal the basis for the investigation and the search warrant. And Donald Trump, he said, he's open book. He wants it released. So naturally, Judge Reinhardt, he's kicking the decision back to the Washington swamp, and he's giving it to Biden's DOJ so they can make the redactions. Oh, that means probably everything will be redacted. So we are clear. The same anti-Trump Washington-based FBI agents, the same exact department that conducted the Russia collusion witch hunt, just raided the president's personal home with a warrant from a judge who also hates Donald Trump, obtained by the Democrats in the DOJ, who also hate Donald Trump, who have been anonymously leaking salacious rumors about the investigation to the anti-Trump Democrats and the media, who are also based, you got it, in Washington, D.C. This is beyond horrendous. It is corrupt. It is an abuse of power. But wait, Attorney General Merrick Garland, he promised that the DOJ is not political and that he will speak through his court filings. Well, court filings and a flurry of anti-Trump leaks. And there are rumblings, by the way, tonight that the DOJ absolutely, positively kept the Biden White House in the loop the entire time. Let's put it this way. We're watching this very closely. Merrick Garland is a disgrace. Frankly, so is the FBI Director Chris Wray. He should have cleaned up the mess he inherited. He did not. And unfortunately, it's gotten worse under his reign. This year, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, he's issued now 3 letters to Director Wray detailing what are serious allegations of political bias from whistleblowers, brave whistleblowers, not hearsay whistleblowers, from inside the FBI. Now, according to the whistleblowers inside the FBI approved investigations into Donald Trump based on questionable evidence while attempting time after time after time to squash an investigation into Hunter Biden, despite a trove of verified material on the laptop from hell, which, by the way, we need to remember implicates the big guy, Joe, and his knowledge of things that he said he had no knowledge of. Now, Grassley is now seeking a comprehensive organizational breakdown of the Washington field office for further investigation. But guess what? The FBI doesn't care. They're refusing to address any of Senator Grassley's concerns. And now, according to a brand new Rasmussen poll, a majority, and this is sad to me. I mean, I had two FBI agents when I was growing up in my family. They were deity. They were revered in my family. But 53% of Americans believe that the upper echelon of the FBI is acting as Joe Biden's personal Gestapo. Now, not words I would use, but that's what they're saying. Tonight, there is little doubt that the FBI and the DOJ have been politicized, and now they're being weaponized beyond belief. Not rank and file, again, the upper echelon. Now, people just like Comey and Strzok, who said they would stop Donald Trump from ever becoming president in 2016. And of course, they had a plan, and then they had an insurance policy if their plan failed. So make no mistake, the deep state is real. If you are a Trump supporter, if you are a conservative, know that they do hate you. Retired General Michael Hayden, who served as America's CIA director after 9/11, actually tweeted that Republicans are more dangerous and contemptible than any violent extremist organization on earth. Democratic strategist, our good friend James Carville, echoed the same sentiment. If you rewound the tape from, let's say, 1992 or 1991, he'd be saying the same thing. It's like a broken record over and over again. Listen.
Huge majorities of the Republican Party don't believe in evolution. Huge majorities of the Republican Party follow Donald Trump and whatever that insanity is. The problem the Republican Party has is they got really stupid people that vote in their primaries. And when you have that, you're going to get really stupid people demand to have really stupid leaders. And that's where the Republican Party is now.
Now, Carville went on to call Republicans racist and evil. Of course, we're used to this kind of rhetoric from Democrats in the media every election cycle. In theory, Humpty Dumpty, he was hired at fake news CNN to hold the media accountable, when in reality, we told you he was nothing but Jeff Zucker, CNN's head at the time, stenographer, who at the request of Zucker made it his life's work to stalk and harass people like me and anyone else that worked at Fox News. Now with Zucker gone, poor Humpty Dumpty has been officially dumped. All the liberal hacks at fake news CNN will never put Humpty on the air again. They can't put him back together again. Always lacking self-awareness, Humpty once accused yours truly of eroding democracy and using, quote, nasty little words to spread poisonous propaganda. Now, at the same time, he was breathlessly pushing lies, conspiracy theories, and hoaxes like the Russian hoax, and dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop story as a manufactured scandal. Now, despite all of this, I may surprise some of you. Humpty, I don't like seeing anyone get fired. I wish you the very best in your future endeavors, probably at Media Matters. And like all the other on-air hosts at CNN, I do have some advice. Stop being dishonest. Stop the journalist charade. You're not a journalist. Just admit you're what I am. You're a member of the press. You're a talk show host. Admit to your truth and your reality in woke terms so you understand it. You're not a journalist. You're a talk show host. Now, by the way, Humpty needs to own his truth that he is a liberal who's obsessed with Fox and hates Fox, but we still wish him the best. We know he'll be watching us obsessively. Anyway, joining us now with our top story is Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley. I'm not dragging you into the Humpty mess. Don't worry, let not your heart be troubled. I want to get your, it's friendly banter between rivals, not a big deal. Not that they're a rival to the Cartoon Network. For them, it's unfortunate. My main question is Judge Reinhardt here. And Judge Reinhardt, who recused himself in one case involving Trump, has spoken out against Trump in social media and donated to Barack Obama. He's free to do all these things, but it doesn't make sense that he would recuse himself once but not twice. Why would he kick it back to the DOJ for their redactions when we know they're going to redact anything of value?
Well, I was not that troubled by the political contributions, because that does happen with judges and magistrates. But I was concerned about the statements he made on social media and the earlier recusal. This is an incredibly important and divisive matter. I'm a little surprised that he felt that he should be the one to sign off on the warrant and review the affidavit. As for sending it back to the DOJ, I think that was an appropriate order. Many of us expected that he would just defer to the Department of Justice. A lot of judges do that, even though the Department of Justice has a long record of using these arguments to prevent disclosures, even to criminal defendants. The problem is that the Department of Justice is rather notorious for using redactions, and they have sort of a perverse incentive here. If they over redact, it's more likely the judge will disagree, which means that they can go on appeal and delay any release further. So they have a rather odd incentive that the more they redact, the more likely they can get more time. But we will have to see if this judge is willing to go mano a mano with the Department of Justice and say, look, this is excessive. I've said all along that I believe portions of this affidavit could be released without undermining the investigation, not because I've seen the affidavit, but I've seen lots of other affidavits. Much of an affidavit involves material that will not necessarily compromise an investigation. And one of the things we're most interested in is the information that's already known to the Trump team. That is, that period of communications from June until that raid. What did they tell the court happened in those communications? Did they faithfully report that there was cooperation, according to the Trump team, and that all other avenues had been exhausted? That's the type of information you should be able to give in a redacted affidavit.
Yeah. In all of the sections cited from the Espionage Act in the warrant that they put out, they all have to show some level of intent on the part of President Trump. Now, that's a very high legal bar from my perspective, because they're not really going to know the intent. Or maybe the intention was that he really believed it was declassified. Or maybe the intention was that's a personal document that they don't have a right to. That seems to me like a very high bar, but again, this would be a case that would be brought to a grand jury in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, and obviously that's not an ideal jury pool for the president. But the other thing that's troubling is that you can be charged under these provisions even if this was not classified information, even if it had been declassified. But it will be a rather untenable case in my view. And you would have to really create some new law. The president's role in declassification it has not really been litigated that much. I mean, presidents have always asserted they have the ultimate and immediate power to declassify. And usually if you talk about pursuing a former president, you're talking about pursuing a case where you've got, everything you need and more. Here you would be litigating in a fairly unknown areas, which is rather surprising.
All right, Jonathan Turley, as always, thank you. We appreciate you being with us here now with more. The author of The Price of Principle, Harvard Law Professor Alan Dershowitz, along with the attorney for former President Donald Trump, Alina Habba, is with us, and the co-host of The Five, Geraldo Rivera. Alina, let me start with you as the president's attorney. Let's talk specifically about the very same issues we brought up with Jonathan Turley. As it relates, send it back to the DOJ. They get to redact whatever they want out of it. I'm pretty certain it's not going to come back favorable in any way to the side of transparency.
I agree with you. I think that there won't be very much transparency. I would expect it will get a lot of black ink all over that piece of paper. If I was the DOJ, a Biden DOJ, I'd probably be redacting everything other than the word and the. So we're going to have to see what they kick back. The one good thing that this judge did say is that he will take a look at it. If it's too heavily redacted, he will do so himself. So he's encouraging them to try and give us some sort of clarity. I think there's a lot of people here that are just waiting, including the Trump team, to see what the basis was when you have a coordinating president. I mean, any person, but let alone a president. It just doesn't make sense.
You know, Professor, it's the same office, the same people involved in an Operation Crossfire Hurricane. I would think that Director Wray might have cleaned up that office, but apparently he has not. I think whatever justification they gave this magistrate who had a clear bias against Donald Trump, I've got to believe they want it redacted for other reasons. That's what my gut tells me. What does your gut tell you?
Well, first of all, I predicted exactly what the judge would do this morning in an op-ed in Newsweek magazine, that he would split the baby, that he would say, yes, it has to be disclosed, but with redaction. But I have a different view from your two previous guests, from Jonathan. I think they're going to deliberately not redact a lot of unfavorable material regarding Donald Trump. They're going to leave that in, because there certainly is going to be material unfavorable if there was an affidavit for a search warrant. Then they're going to redact material that might be favorable to him. So it won't have anything to do with what's classified, what's unclassified, what's necessary for investigation. It will have much more to do with how they can redact and unredact in a way that favors
But
them.
they're letting the DOJ do it. And the DOJ doesn't want it redacted. They don't want this out in the public. Donald Trump does. Doesn't that tell you a lot?
It certainly does, but I bet the DOJ wants different things out in the public than Donald Trump does.
Well,
Now,
they're leaking that already.
Of course they are, but it's much
Right.
stronger if it actually can show it. Look, I agree with you. Along with Jonathan Turley, I've seen dozens and dozens of these redacted affidavits, and they just redact. And I also agree that the judge will overrule them, and then they'll have a right to appeal. The next question is, will they get a stay pending appeal, or will the information have to be disclosed? This is just the beginning of the process, and the Justice Department has too much control over it.
Geraldo, let's get your legal hat on, not your talk show host hat on, and get your analysis and your take.
Well, I'll leave the redacting or the non-redacting to your previous guests, including my other dear friend, Professor Alan Dershowitz. My big beef with the Justice Department behavior today in court was the fact that they made the claim that their investigation was in the early stages and that they feared that if they did not redact, that their witnesses or their confidential informants might be exposed. Now, they said it was in the early stages. My question is, if indeed the investigation is in the early stages, then how in the world did they get a search warrant that there was probable cause that a crime had been committed and justifying this extraordinary raid for the first time in American history, an American president's residence, a former president's residence, in this unprecedented act was invaded by 30 FBI agents. So it's either in the early stages or they had probable cause that a crime had been committed. It seems to me that you can't have both. You've got to pick a lane.
Alina, how do you feel about that?
That's 100% accurate, and I think you brought up a good point in your monologue, Sean. This is the Russia hoax team. This is the same people that are involved there. Strzok, Lisa Page, all these individuals have tainted the FBI, and these are the same individuals that have been going after Donald Trump since the day he came down that escalator. And it will not stop as long as he's leading in the polls.
Last 35 seconds. You're a professor, you get the last 35 seconds.
Yeah, let's remember, everybody out there predicted that Reinhart would just affirm the Justice Department and not disclose anything. I predicted that he would do exactly this, that he would redact part. So I'm going to give him a presumption of credibility and expect that he will actually accurately
He trashed
decide.
Trump in social media, and he questioned his morality, Professor. It doesn't get any more personal than that.
Yeah.
I agree, but I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He did a very good thing today.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that he hates Trump. It's obvious. He's put it in writing.
But look, everybody predicted that he would not disclose, and he did. That you have to give him the benefit of the doubt for that. Let's wait and see.
The only reason is, in my view, he split the baby, to use your term, because he needed an out, because he should have never taken the case, because he previously recused himself from the other case. I want an A+ in this class,
What if there
Professor.
was a crime?
I give you an A+, Sean.
Thank you, Alina. I appreciate it. All right, thank you all. Coming up, we're going to highlight Pennsylvania Senate candidate, the radical Bernie Sanders wannabe John Fetterman, all his radical views, all his controversial past. Dr. Oz, an important state, must-win state for Republicans, is next. All right, far-left Pennsylvania Senate candidate John Fetterman returned to the campaign trail last Friday, making his first public appearance since suffering a stroke back in May. Now, sadly, Fetterman at times appeared to be struggling a lot speaking, but as always, we'll let you decide and watch for yourself.
25 of those counties more votes, 25 of those 54 red counties more votes than Dr. Oz in those counties as well, too. I gave away the lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania, the only lieutenant governor in the history to do that. And you can count on us to eliminate the filibuster, and let's get some stuff done for America.
Now, we said our prayers, wish Fetterman and everyone else good health in their life and on the road to recovery. But meanwhile, we are learning so much more about Fetterman's really extreme far-left positions on crime, anti-fracking, on New Green Deal socialism, ending the legislative filibuster, packing the court, legalizing drug dens, legalizing heroin, and everything in between. Here's a small sample.
I don't support fracking. I think it's something that has to eventually go away, and I would like to see it, transition out.
I was on a panel with Secretary Wetzel earlier before the pandemic hit, and he said something remarkable that I agree with. He said, we could reduce our prison population by a third and not make anyone less safe in Pennsylvania. And that's a profound statement. We do need to reimagine how we are dispatched to these scenes in terms of what's the best tool to bring. I think public safety needs to be part of that, but could this be handled by somebody else?
Just like, wait a second, what are you talking about? Like, you want to legalize heroin, and why are you talking, why do you care about these things? And I think it's important we as a society have all the options on the table, including needle exchange, which is only technically legal in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and even safe injection sites that are being considered, like, say, in Philadelphia.
Now, this is a must-hold GOP Senate race in Pennsylvania. Fetterman has already made it very clear he will abolish the filibuster. He will double down on the failing far-left Biden and Bernie manifesto and their agenda. He endorsed Bernie Sanders over Biden in the primary. That means crime will go up, costs will go up, taxes will go up, your quality of life in Pennsylvania will go down and all around the country, and control of the Senate may very well come down to this race in Pennsylvania. Now, Fetterman is a spoiled socialist trust fund brat in a hoodie who's lived off his parents for decades, 49 till he's 49 years old. Selena Zito wrote a great column about this earlier, and she laid it out in all its detail. Now, he's nothing more than a tax-eating, far-left radical Democrat. He wants to raise your taxes, destroy your life. To the left of Bernie Sanders is pretty far left, and destroy American energy independence, which, by the way, fracking is big in Pennsylvania. And he's on board with the Democrats' defund, dismantle, end cash bail, pro-criminal agenda. For example, back in 2021, while on the Pennsylvania Parole Board, Fetterman reportedly voted to release a man convicted of killing an 18-year-old kid for money to buy heroin. And back in 2013, armed with a shotgun, he literally chased down an unarmed black jogger, falsely believing this man was involved in a shooting that hadn't taken place. This man should be nowhere near the U.S. Senate. Pennsylvania is way out of touch with your values, and the country cannot afford John Fetterman. Here with reaction, Republican Pennsylvania Senate candidate Dr. Mehmet Oz is with us. Dr. Oz, abortion up to the last minute he supports, absolutely no restrictions at all. Ending fracking, endorsed Bernie Sanders. By the way, the murder rate as lieutenant governor went up around 60% since he's been lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania. Chased down this jogger, this African-American jogger. As I understand it, the shooting hadn't even taken place. voted to free this convicted murderer and wants to legalize heroin and fund safe injection sites. How is this guy even running a campaign? He's only appeared once since after his stroke. Is that true?
You've got the numbers right. You got the data on him right. He's the most radical left candidate for a contested U.S. Senate seat in the country this year. I think he's probably the most radical candidate Pennsylvania has ever put forward for a statewide resident. It just shows you how far left the Democratic Party has gone that they actually nominated him. And the reality is he doesn't want to leave his home, we don't think. And he didn't campaign all that much during the primary. I've done 160 events already in the last month and a half. I'm in central Pennsylvania right now in a van speaking
and how many has he done?
Campaigning.
How many has he done?
One. You showed a little clip from it. One.
Only one. That
And he's
one
been
11-minute
hiding the whole
speech?
time.
He did one 11-minute
That's it.
speech the whole campaign. Wow.
And here's why it's a problem. By the way, I've also asked him to accept one of the 5 debates that we've accepted that major media companies have offered. He's not responded. Here's the real challenge for America. I want everyone to focus on this. He's basically a hologram. The voters of Pennsylvania don't know much about John Fetterman because they don't see him. He's not out there listening to him, which is the first thing you should do as a candidate and as a doctor, is hear what constituents saying. He's not talking, they're not answering questions from media, he's not offering responses that can be heard. So we're actually witnessing in Pennsylvania money flowing into his campaign from California, New York, from the coast, because they desperately want to have the 51st seat in the Senate. But they're not letting him out of the door. They're creating a brand around him. That's why, please, if you're listening now and you're upset about this, go to droz.com and donate to my campaign. It's the only way for us to keep up. But this is a real crisis, Sean, because if he pulls this off, what basically Joe Biden did, but on steroids, by never leaving the house except maybe once a month or even less to say something, then we're going to see a whole new era where candidates never go out. Because, you know, when you go out and you get tired working 18-hour days like I do, you know, mistakes happen. People ask awkward questions, but folks challenge you. And then they start to make media out of that. My opponent's not out there. I'm dancing by myself. And it's a lot better to have both candidates out doing what they're supposed to do in a democracy. Be seen, be heard, and articulate why you believe what you believe. He has to defend his radical ideology. As you pointed it out, it's way to the left of everyone. Bernie Sanders and he have endorsed each other, and they call each other the two most populist candidates in the country. He's like AOC on steroids. He'd be the center of that team if the squad got together.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, you talk about Joe Biden's basement bunker campaign that he ran in 2020. Then you talk about all this money coming from New York and California. This great piece written by Selena Zito about, you know, apparently he never worked. And I know you've been attacked for living outside the state. You had something called a job that paid you money, and apparently, to use Selena's words, he was sponging off his parents for all these years. I mean, has he ever had any real job besides being a mayor, and apparently never showed up for a lot of council meetings? And now lieutenant governor, and under his watch, crime is soaring?
Well, so as Selena pointed out in the article, the mayor's a part-time job, gets paid a couple $100s a year. Didn't really show up for that, hasn't shown up for much of the lieutenant governor's job. He's known for hanging a pot flag out of the window. His only real campaigning was to get marijuana legalized. Sean, I'm the son of an immigrant, and I knew from the day one when I was a kid, you work hard, you challenge yourself to achieve greatness, to support America, and you'll achieve the American dream. That's not been John Fetterman's life story. He grew up, as Senator points out, in privilege, did not work. His parents funded his life. And until recently, that's all he had to do was just sort of back his way through life. So that's why I don't understand what his real goals are with these radical positions. I don't think he appreciates the damage they would do to tax-paying citizens of Pennsylvania, the folks who have to do the heavy lifting to keep the machinery of America running. When you call fracking a stain on the Commonwealth, You're attacking an entire industry, hardworking people who do their best to make a living for their families, keeping actually the environment as clean as you can if you're harvesting natural gas from up beneath my feet here, because that's what we need to do to take care of this country. He doesn't understand that the Green New Deal is a dishonest narrative. But again, if you're upset about this man and how much he's getting funded, go to droz.com. Support me, help me take him out. Otherwise, he's threatening to become the 51st Democratic senator.
All right, Dr. Oz, we're going to watch this closely. I hope people around the country understand how important this race is. Thank you. Now, yet again tonight, we have more sickening New York City violent crime caught on tape. Now, remember this video that we showed you last night? A career criminal sucker punching a man unconscious outside of a Bronx restaurant last week. Well, get this. We're now learning tonight that the far-left Bronx district attorney has now charged that guy with a mere misdemeanor for harassment and assault. This is a 55-year-old repeat violent criminal who's also a sex offender, and now he's been released without bail in just the latest example of far-left lawlessness. But unfortunately, that lawlessness doesn't stop in major cities, because once again tonight, we have footage of Biden's open borders in action. Now take a look at your screen. New video showing Border Patrol agents literally opening up a gate previously locked by the Texas National Guard in order to allow illegal immigrants to come into the U.S. So as Texas authorities try to secure our southern border, Team Biden, they're right there to invite them in illegally, and they get involved in, human trafficking. And it's just one of the many reasons why a new poll is finding that a majority of Americans see this as an invasion of our southern border. And meanwhile, in New York City, officials are getting just a small little glimpse of what border communities are suffering from every single day. New York City is now begging for an extra 5,000 hotel rooms to house the migrants being bused to the city by the Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Great move, Governor. Here with reaction, Border Patrol Union President Brandon Judd, along with Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. Sarah, let's start with your report first. You've been down there for us many times reporting.
Oh, yes, Sean, and I just returned this week from a week, actually, in Central America, and the situation is becoming very grave. I got information from sources both in El Salvador as well as Guatemala that many people are pouring in from across the globe into Honduras. I spoke with people actually along the border as well as senior officials in both governments and spoke to these folks that were coming across and asked them why were they willing to take such a risk, even with children as young as 1 year old, babies coming across 3 different nations. And they said, well, Biden has the border wide open. We've talked to our family members. We've talked to friends who have actually made their way in. So when you look at that video of, the Border Patrol agents opening that gate, Sean, this is not just a one-time thing. This is kind of an overall picture of what is happening at our border, and people from across the world are actually hearing it loud and clear. And if you think it's bad now, just wait until the next fiscal year, because they're expecting millions of people to make this trek into the United States. This is just the beginning of something really terrible.
Brandon, what are the rank and file on the ground saying that they're dealing with every day? Now, we haven't even brought into the equation 90% of America's heroin crossing that border, or 95% of fentanyl crossing that border, or the fact that we lose about 300 American kids each week because of these drugs. What are the rank and file saying? They're not allowed to do their job. They have to offer preferential treatment to people entering this country illegally, breaking our laws, not respecting our border or sovereignty. Then they get a free Biden phone and transportation to the state of their choice. And on top of it, there's no COVID testing, there's no vaccine mandate for these illegal immigrants. What is going on here?
Yeah, every single one of us are beyond upset. When you look back at President Trump's administration, he not only gave us the infrastructure, but he also gave us the policy. When you look at that video and when you see that gate, those fences were made to stop people from evading apprehension. Unfortunately, those people were in the United States. They already made an illegal entry. They already committed a crime. So we had to take them into custody. That's why you're seeing them open the gate to take them into custody, because they already committed that crime. And that stopped. That didn't happen under President Trump because he gave us the policy as well. When you see that, that clearly shows how bad the Biden administration's policies are. That we take people into custody and they're able to congregate behind that fence because they know that ultimately they're going to be released into the United States. Even though we took them into custody, we're going to take them back to the Border Patrol station. We're going to process them and ultimately release them or give them a reward. And that's why we have to have both. We have to have both the technology, the infrastructure and the policy. And that's what Trump gave us. And Biden has gotten rid of all of it. And that's the problem. And that's why we're so demoralized right now in this time.
And one of the things you've been able to highlight with your investigative reporting, Sarah, is the fact that, this perilous journey is resulting in a lot of people dying, a lot of young girls being raped, a lot of crime, all of it's being run by the cartels. That seems to get overlooked by everybody.
Well, it does, Sean, and I've got to tell you, we're going to be bringing those reports to you exclusively from Central America, where I was able to speak with human smugglers. I spoke to people that took that perilous journey, the loss of life of children along that journey, children who have just disappeared completely, other children who have been rescued, and the families that are facing perils, like the families that we saw that died and perished in the back of an 18-wheeler in 170-degree heat, just burning up, being locked in by these cartels. But we also have to look at the national security implications, just like you said, Sean. We're seeing, just over the weekend, 600 known gotaways. Those are people that just disappeared into our country over one weekend from one area that we know now have disappeared into our nation. Fentanyl coming across, and I don't know if people have seen these reports, but now they're seeing fentanyl coming across that looks like candy. So the pills actually look like candy. So if your children see them, they might think that they're a Skittles or something like that. They're very colorful, rainbow colors. They're getting those at the border. This is an extremely dangerous situation for our nation. It's an extremely dangerous situation for those in poverty that are taking this route into the United States. And the only people that are particularly benefiting are these drug cartels and these human traffickers who are amassing hundreds of billions of dollars off of the death of our children and off of the death of these migrants. So I think the Biden administration should truly assess what it is doing here, because its policy is just perpetuating this behavior.
All right, investigative reporter Sarah Carter. Brandon, thank you as well. When we come back, controversy after videos of reaction, former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, Leo 2.0 Terrell. The poor Prime Minister, there are videos out there of me and Leo singing karaoke that I don't think the world would want to see Pam Bondi. I'm surprised the people in Finland are that uptight that the Prime Minister is, hanging out with her friends and acting crazy. So what?
Well, Sean, I think the problem is when you're a prime minister and when you're a neighboring country of Russia that's at war with Ukraine, and when you are desperately trying to get your country in NATO, and when you are required to have your cell phone with you at all times because you have such a serious job. She seemed a little out of sorts then. I don't know. I just think I have a problem with that. If you accept that job, you got to accept the responsibility. You and Leo, on the other hand, you've got a lot of free time to go to your karaoke.
The problem is I don't have a lot of free time, and Leo's awful at it. I'm bad, but he's awful. All right. First, Leo, it was the DOJ investigating parents that spoke out at school board meetings as potentially being domestic terrorists. Now we have teachers' unions. If parents dare say they want age-appropriate materials, they don't want CRT, they don't want gender identity taught to their kids in school, they want reading, writing, math, science, history, and computers, somehow they're extremists?
Yeah, because let's be clear. The union is a arm of the Democratic Party. They are a propaganda machine for the extreme left. You are an extremist if you believe in reading, writing, and mathematics for your school-age children. I used to be a school teacher. You're an extremist if you are opposed to critical race theory, or if you do not believe in gender identification classes for third graders. This is just pure extremism on the left, and they're trying to use the kids. You see those commercials? The kids are being used as props. These unions do not care about school children. They care about power and control, and they're social influencers for the Democratic left. But I'm telling you right now, I'm proud to be an extremist if I believe in quality education and keeping critical race theory, which is nothing more than racism, out of public schools.
You know, Pam, I look at what's happening to parents and why are they under assault. You know, we pay more per capita per student on education than any other industrialized country. And parents, I think, have a right to say they don't want their kids indoctrinated into value systems that they disagree with, especially when we're getting the worst results and the worst bang for our buck than any country on education for our kids. Why don't they stick to the basics? Teach this after class. Let kids opt in if the parents want it.
That's exactly right, Sean, and I come from a family of educators. Look what they did in New Jersey. Look what they did in Virginia with Glenn Youngkin. That helped propel him to the governor's mansion. And that's what's going to happen in New Jersey if they're not careful. They are extremists. And as Leo said, not only that, parents have a right, of course, to know what their children are being taught. They have a right to know what their children are reading, that they're not reading about critical race theory. It's unbelievable now. But parents also have the right to school choice. If their educational needs are not being met in the school in which they are placed, they have a right to change schools for their student, and that's what conservatives believe in, school choice. And the Democrats have just lost sight of that. They used to be known as the party of education, and that's just gone because all they care about are the teachers' unions and not the students.
All right, Leo, are you going to release your karaoke tapes?
Yes, a duet with Sean Hannity and Leo Terrell. We're going to be singing Reunited. We're going to revitalize the Peaches Herb song. Are you Peaches or I'm Herb? Reunited, Sean Hannity and Leo Terrell.
Pam, you do know why I call him Leo 2.0 Terrell, right? In the old days,
Pam, I need you to be the host.
Well, hang on.
Pam,
in the old days, Pam,
go ahead.
He used to come on the show, and for whatever reason, he'd get so pissed off at me.
That's not true, Pam.
He would rip out his earpiece, rip off his microphone,
That's not true, Pam.
and then we would show an empty chair where he was supposed to be sitting. He probably did it 15 times.
And now he's embracing the 2.0.
That's right.
And he won't let me show the tape. I have the videotape to prove it, Leo. Give me permission to air it. All right, we'll have more Hannity coming up right after this break. Wow, time flies. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have left this evening. As always, thank you for being with us. Thank you for making the show possible. Please set your DVR so you never miss an episode of Hannity. Don't forget, for news anytime, foxnews.com, Hannity.com. And in the meantime, let not your hearts be troubled. The great Laura Ingraham is up next with another kick-ass show. She had one last night.